This meeting of the Commission is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Sacramento cable system. Today's meeting is being cablecast live and will be repeated Saturday at noon. A VHS copy is also available for checkout from any library branch. Any member of the audience who wishes to address the Commission should fill out a speaker identification form located at the back table, or, well, there usually are some on the podium, but I don't see any anyway, at the back table. And if you'd hand it forward to the clerk, we'll make sure you get a chance to speak on the item of interest to you. When you address the Commission, please speak into the microphone and make sure you state your name for the record. With that, why don't we call the roll to establish a quorum?
Cox.
Aye.
Pratt.
Aye.
Natoli.
Here.
Collin.
Here.
Oh, Collin. Cone.
Here. Still here.
Okay. Thank you.
Again.
Thank you. Waters.
Here.
Yee.
Here.
Dickinson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Okay, I think before we take up the first item, I just want to, on behalf of the Commission, welcome our new members of the Commission and new members of the City Council as we begin the year. Councilman Waters and Councilman Cone, welcome to the Commission.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also our new colleague on the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Natoli, welcome to the Commission.
Hey, Father.
And welcome back to everyone who had the fortitude to return. You want to call the first item?
Elect chairperson and vice chair.
Okay. Do we have any nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it's appropriate for the current vice chairman to ascend to the heights of chairman, and at the same time would nominate Mr. Pratt. I believe it's probably his time to be the vice chairman.
All right.
And so I would make that motion.
I'd second the motion.
All right. We have a motion and a second to nominate me as chair if I can ascend those lofty heights, and Mr. Pratt if I can't. Are there any other nominations?
Have voice vote. Or I'll move to close the nomination.
All right.
And have voice vote,
Is there
please.
a second to that?
There is.
All right, we'll combine them. This is a voice vote both on closing the nominations and on the election of the nominees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the motion is agreed to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that will consist of my statement, assuming this lofty position. Why don't we go to item number 2?
Here's the agenda. And if you don't have that, it's got your name on it. I just wanted you to pass it on to you.
Is this what it looks like? Is this how it works? I delegate a lot of authority and let the clerk read the item.
We have grantee status reports, and we have Ron Cooper as a speaker.
Okay, Ron? Did I see Ron out there? Oh, there he is. Okay.
Moving right along here in the new year. Ron Cooper, Executive Director at Access Sacramento.
Happy New Year, Ron.
Happy New Year to you, and welcome to the new members of the Cable Commission. Look forward to working with each of you, and it's always interesting.
Yeah, never dull.
And the more you look, the more you see. Just as a way of updating, the last time the Commission met and we gave a report was in November. So I've included in that packet being passed around the last 2 issues, December and then the current issue, January, of our now monthly newsletter, the Viewfinder. And in each of them, it does help, I think, to give you an idea of what's been happening in those 2 months. Also, the programming schedule for Channel 17 and 18 public access is included in each of them as well for your viewing pleasure and information. And in particular, on the back of it is a green form, because at the November meeting of the Commission, I did inform the body that the Board of Directors of Access Sacramento was entertaining the individual membership requirement for all program providers and all facility users of Access Sacramento commencing in 1995. At the November meeting of the Board of Directors of Access Sacramento, after a public hearing on this issue, the Board of Directors did vote into effect the membership requirement, and as of January 1st, we have now been processing the information. There are 3 membership categories of Access Sacramento. So there is a question in free memberships. Subscriber members are a membership category and will continue to be free. So those Sacramento Cable subscribers who wish to participate in our board elections and other activities are more than welcome to. This individual membership is the first time in our history that those who make use of the facility, those who submit programs, those who use equipment will be joining. And as you could see, the fees there are $10 a year for seniors and students, $25 for individual, and $50 a year for nonprofit organizations. And again, for the new members, this is a part of the alternative funding and revenue streams that we are evaluating. This is but one, and we're examining any and all avenues, looking down the line at the future, given the changes going on, particularly in Washington, D.C., regarding franchise fees. And so we're trying to look at that reality square on, and this is one of those avenues that we're exploring. I'd also like to extend that form is certainly there for each of you to fill out. If you'd like to mail in and become a member of Access Sacramento, I'd like to extend a complimentary membership to each of you. Certainly, if you're so inclined and didn't spend over the holidays as much as you had thought you would, we would welcome any contribution that you'd have as well. But certainly, we'd like you on our list of members so that you would get the monthly newsletter as a way of updating you about our activities, much of which is very positive, and often in these meetings we don't have time to really go into. The other mention that I wanted to include today was that over the holidays we had what we termed the Access Santa project, which was an email address, electronic mail address, and a voice mailbox for children of all ages, as we come to find out, to call and to write with messages to Santa. And we'd like to publicly thank Sacramento Cable for their financial underwriting of the online costs, and we appreciate that. And also the visit by General Manager Wayne Vowell to our November meeting, which was a very, very positive meeting. Our board was thrilled to hear of the desire on the part of Sacramento Cable to work with all the access channels and with public access, and to coin the phrase that Mr. Val used, to provide that unique difference between the services of Sacramento Cable, with local production and local programming being a high priority that distinguishes Sacramento Cable as a provider of services from the phone company and any and all other types of satellite delivered and other types of programming that may be coming into the community as a competitor. So we see that as a real plus. We agree with him entirely that it is a unique service that we plan to continue providing, and we appreciate their support, as well as we appreciate your support. I joked, I said, well, a complimentary membership for the 8 of you, $514,000 a year. I mean, I think that's very reasonable. So, but we appreciate it.
We pay our dues, right?
There we go. You're well paid in our minds. So once again, we look forward to a new year and welcome the new members. And in next month's meeting, we'll give you our quarterly update with the year-end statistics in terms of our activities.
Great. Thanks, Ron. Are there any questions for Ron? Thank you very much for the newsletters and the update. Do we have anyone, as a member of the public, who wishes to address the commission on this item? If not, why don't we go on to item 3 if clerk will read.
We have franchisee, licensee, general status presentation, and our first speaker is Wayne Bell.
Okay, Wayne?
How you doing? Happy New Year to
Happy New
everyone.
Year.
I wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year. And I wanted to welcome the new members. I look forward to working with you and getting guidance and direction and support. And I think 1995 has the opportunity to be an outstanding year for the cable company and its contribution to the community. We've done a lot of new things. It's going to be a new beginning for us. We hope to punch through a lot of the clutter and get into some fresh air occasionally here in 95. And I think we are well on the road to making some improvements in selected areas. We are focused. We are making our allocations of our expenses where they need to be. We are sort of trying to make sure that we spend a lot more time in 95 nurturing and enlightening our employees about the issues of the 90s. They aren't going away. We're not going to go away, so we have to learn to deal with them, and we're going to deal with them from a very productive and proactive perspective. And I think if we continue to do and focus in that direction, you'll hear more of the positive things that this company and its employees can do to the community than maybe we've had the opportunity to in the past. So I'm very excited about 95. So the reorganization, I have made some changes in the staffing patterns at the cable system. I've not rebuilt, I've remodeled a little bit, and I think that's more productive for me. It gives me and those employees that were affected by the changes to see what their capabilities are and make some fair assessments and evaluations of processes and people. The competition is going to be legitimate. It's here. It's alive. It's vibrant, and as my friend and colleague here might suggest, it's very competitive. So we have to be on our toes. I'm taking it very seriously, and some of the things that we'll be doing in the very near future relative to the electronic upgrade, spending $30 million over the next 24 months to bring improved reception and electronic goods and services to the community. And doing so, we're hoping that we will be able to expand some bandwidth, make more channels available for the more niche and specific type of boutique programming that selected members of the community would like to have more of, and on a consistent basis. So we are committed and focused in that particular area as well. The electronic goods and services that we will provide are going to be very exciting. Majority of them will be the video in nature, but we are beginning to work on the platform for a electronic data delivery. We have a Tubed Cube project, which is an online service that we're going to be working with that we're very excited about. Clearly, it's in its evolutionary stage. I don't know. It costs the consumers nothing, but with very little promotion of it, awareness of it, it is the fastest growing consumer product that I have online right now. I have over 1,000 customers that are using that as a mechanism for information gathering and communication with the cable company and our employees, and it's very exciting. So I still think the consumer has a lot to learn about it. We as a provider have a lot to learn about it. Don't know if they will embrace it, but clearly the potential looks very, very productive. And we're going to be focusing on that with a very intense eye. But most of the services will be a video in nature. And there are some electronic games that we probably will provide in late 95 as well. But 95 is going to be an outstanding year for us and the consumer regarding the products that we'll be able to deliver. We're going to focus on the fundamentals of the business, the phones. We still are struggling a little bit with answering our phones in a very timely fashion on a consistent basis. A lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to give you excuses. We have staffing problems. We have training issues. But those are all things that you can fix. And we are in the process. We've had Rich over a few times to explore and pick his brain, I might add, in terms of some of the things we might be able to do to improve the situation. And he's very insightful, and he's given us some good guidance. And I think Ruth Blank is here to share with you bits and pieces of that strategy. I think Rich will agree that we have a strategy, we have a plan that we want to execute, and our ability to execute it in a very effective fashion is resting on the shoulders of a Miss Ruth Blank, who is our Director of Business Office, and unfortunately we have a colleague that's not here, and her Esther Priestley, who works with Ruth in our business office and is intimately involved in improving that particular aspect of our service. But we're going to be doing a lot of things. The phones clearly are top priority. Appointments being more consistent and precise, and the servicing. When we have to service a particular account, we want to get there in a closer window of time that's conducive to their needs. These 4-hour, 5-hour window of blocks, they're okay in certain cases, but we have to be responsive. 40% of the TV households out here have both heads of household working, and we have to find ways to accommodate their needs when they can be available, not when we can be there. So that's kind of the attitude we're looking for in the future. I hope you will find it acceptable. We will do it. We're going to walk the talk, prove it to you, and hopefully we can create a scenario out here that you're very proud of. We want you to be proud of us, and we're going to do everything in our power to give you something to be smile about and help promote the service for us. So having said that, I would like to ask Ruth if she could come down briefly.
I have a couple questions.
Well, yeah, while Ruth's coming forward, go ahead, Mr. Waters.
You talked about the service. Do your repair technicians work what you call a swing shift, 4 to 12, so they can accommodate these two persons that are working and not home for a daytime appointment?
Well, we're in the process of evaluating the scheduling right now. We have had that. It's the fact of the matter is we're open 24 hours a day. You have a service problem, I need to find a way to get there when you can be there and when it's convenient to you. Presently, we have these 4-hour blocks of time that we ask people to be at home, and that's in about 20% of the cases, that's unacceptable. The consumer just can't get there, and then having them to burden their weekends waiting for us is something we're going to have to find solutions to.
So is it fair to say that there is a block in place today from 6 p.m. tonight till 10 p.m. if I needed somebody to come out?
Yes, sir, we can get there. I prefer to stay out of households, obviously, after too late in the evening, but if it's required, if you want,
block,
yes, you should be able to accommodate that.
A couple other things. You opened your talk with the fact that competition is out there. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you have any feelings, or are you at liberty to say what the satellite dish, the small satellite dish, is going to, how it's going to impact Sacramento Cable?
Sir, at this point in time, I don't think they've had the inventory to really give me a taste test of what the erosion might be. I can only submit to you, we've had it installed at our building. It's legitimate. They do provide quality product. There are some advantages, but there are also some disadvantages. The cost it's pretty pricey. But I would, I can anticipate anywhere from 5 to 15%. If they market, they're spending millions and millions of dollars to promote the product. So I'm very concerned about it. And it's an effective multi-channel competitor. And if I don't respond with the same type of services and the same flexibilities and improve upon my service and the issue we were just speaking of in terms of being more responsive in an immediate fashion, they could scrub off 20, 30%. So it's just too early to predict. They are moving out a lot of hardware. A lot of it is the existing TVRO dishes are upgrading to that service. So it's just really difficult to get a read on. I do think their strategy will change. I don't think they're going to focus on the rural areas. I think they'll go to the high-density areas and pick off those income households that can accommodate the pricing. The thing that concerns me more than anything else really is it's like the cellular telephone business. Not many years ago, those things were $300 and $400 and $500. They're now in the $50 range, and I think you'll see the same descending in price relative to their products. And it's going to be a service and price issue, and who can do the job the best, the quickest.
You also spoke to branching out other than the cable television. Do you have plans to go into the telephone business also and compete?
Sir, we have, there are plans on the drawing board. Clearly, if we can participate in the telephony business, we will do so. Whether or not it is viable, whether or not there will be multiple wires into the home, whether the cost is going to be so prohibitive that it will prevent us from doing it. Clearly, the economics, if you will just take the telephony industry, residential service is a $100 million business, $100 billion business. The cable industry in its present form is about a $25 billion industry. The research that we have seen based on our ability to provide and what's happened in England in terms of the penetration of telephone and cable, I can accommodate a 20% market share of their product. I could get 20% of our customers to take their service. And if that's an industry figure, 20% of a $100 billion business is significant. 20% of a $25 billion business is not that significant to them. Now, what they intend to do, I'm not sure. But our strategic plans over the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to share with you, have telephony in them. Now, what will happen between then and then is unclear, but that's our game plan. And the incentive is real.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Waters?
No, that's
Good. Mr. Yee, and then
Yeah.
Ms. Collins.
Wayne, there's one segment out there in the community that has been very patient, and we've worked with your company in the past. What's the latest status of fiber optics, whereas we can get more channels?
It's amazing you bring it up. I just got off the phone with the gentleman that was was doing an article for the Bee on this. I think there was a coalition of quality programming relative to selected programming. There was a channel 26 out of San Francisco. That we are going to be, as a result of some advancements in some technology and some improvement and motivation in our area, we're trying to find some bandwidth sooner than 1996 to bring back selected products. I cannot promise the total hours that everyone might want, but I do think that I can bring back bits and pieces and have it there on a more consistent basis than might have been indicated in the past. The early indicators are very good, that there may be a channel or two that I might be able to squeeze out prior to the completion of the rebuild. And then, and I think Rich will probably share with you, the FCC has allowed me to do certain things moving forward that if I use prudently may also be able to accommodate the needs of selected audiences out there. And that is the objective. It'll happen, and I'll be able to serve everyone's needs eventually. It's just how quickly can I do it? It's a large elephant. I'm taking small bites, and I am somewhat restrained by technology, but the motivation is high, and the desire to be responsive, but at the same time, keeping expectations to a level that I can achieve is my objective. But I'm very sensitive, and we will be reacting in a fashion, I think, that these audiences will find acceptable.
Can you get together with my office as soon as more information on this becomes available?
Absolutely. I was going to meet with Rich in the very near future. I want to make sure he's in the loop and
That's fine.
clearly understands and can find some way to agree with what we want to accomplish. And then at that point in time, I share with you everything we want to accomplish.
The other question I have, and this may have to, Rich, you may have to answer it, but we're talking about competition. The question I have is how much authority does this commission has over some of these other competitors? Talking about satellite or even the latest PAC-Bell getting involved in it.
I'd like to address that under item 6, Mr. Yee. That was part of the staff's presentation.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we want to talk about. Any other questions?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, my question, and I want to preface it with a statement first, and then you can probably respond to the question. The complaint I probably get more common than anything else in terms of people that are subscribing to basic cable, and I don't mean basic, but basic cable, is the fact that they are paying for home shopping networks that they don't want. And I'd like to know the status of the one that was put forward as must carry, but at least I thought I should bring that up because that is a real gripe by people who are subscribing to basic cable.
It's a legitimate complaint.
Why stop there?
I am somewhat restricted to what I can do, one, by cause of must carry, two, bandwidth, and three, contractual obligations. I am going to try to find a way to mitigate these shopping channels. I can't respond in any fashion that can be definitive right now, but we are deeply involved in negotiations with specifically HSN and trying to find some relief from them.
That's the one that was down in the Bay Area.
There's a local home shopping, and I think that's the one you're referring to. We're working with those people right now, and I think if you will allow me until next council meeting, I can give you a more definitive answer to that particular question.
Okay,
President Collins, there's, let me see if I got it right there. We have 4 home shopping channels. 2 are broadcast must-carries, and 2 are channels that Sacramento Cable has a contract with to provide directly. The Supreme Court took the must-carry issue, and my recollection is that they've essentially ducked it. There was a November 30th target date. Looks at the Supreme Court may hold it for a while, pending on telecommunications reform legislation this year. My recollection also is that the cable industry is going to stand down on must-carry as a priority this year, putting competitive factors, the telephone entry into cable, on a higher priority. I expect that we'll see the must-carry issue addressed in telecommunications reform legislation, but that is a year, probably 2 years away, as we'll discuss. If Wayne's got some ways contractually that he could change the mix of his channels, that would probably be very much appreciated by consumers.
Commitments. If I can commit things to the future, I might be able to get some relief.
I think that would be greatly appreciated by many people who are subscribing to basic cable, who are just really angry that they're having to pay this per monthly bill for channels they never watch, and that, and then at the same time they can't get the things they want to watch. They wanted to watch political people, I guess, wanted to watch meetings that were taking place in the Assembly and other places, and they're having to switch all over to try and find.
I'm very sensitive to that. It's we are a medium of choice, and in essence, I have to make sure that I'm providing that choice to everyone. And this is an impediment for me to do that, and I'm going to work very hard to get us some relief.
It's nice to hear. Thank you.
My wife feels the same way.
Other questions from members? I just would thank you for being here and spending some time with us today. Let me just slightly reinforce what Isla was saying. I think yesterday was a particularly graphic example when a lot of people who wanted to tune in to see what was going to happen on the Assembly and couldn't do it. But they sure could find home shopping opportunities.
Yes.
Naugahyde was in good supply.
Zirconium figurines. And
I think what makes them mad is they have to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly emblematic of the kinds of programming issues you face, but obviously you've got some much bigger issues that are out there in the area of competition that we've alluded to a little bit. The pace of change in telecommunications is hard to keep up with.
It's an amazing. The industry is almost like it was 20 years ago. It's vibrating, and I was at a meeting about 8 months ago, and Scully had indicated the convergence of all of this stuff is in excess of $3.6 trillion by the turn of the century. It's going to be huge business, and the moving and the changing of the telecommunication policy, if it is done this, I mean, it's just going to be very exciting, and it's we all are going to have to participate in it, and we have to get educated to it and find some way to control it in a fashion that can be productive for the residents of this particular community anyway. So it's going to be fun.
Each one of those elements is a significant challenge in and of itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Ruth Blank. If you could just give us your name for the record as you...
My name is Ruth Blank, for the record.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. I do want to talk for just a minute or two about phone service because it is an area that we're working very hard to improve, but I wanted to put it in a little bit of perspective and let you know what we are doing. Is it possible to turn, how do I do that? You do that?
Magic commands.
You want the screen?
Just for a second.
Okay.
Actually, it's just 1994 was an incredibly productive year for us. we took almost 2 million phone calls in customer service. 1.6 million of them, over 1.6 million, were actual customer contact calls. About 110,000 were on our automated response unit. And that translates to almost 4,800 calls every single day of the year on average, or about 2% of our customer base daily calling us. Or another way of looking at it is each one of our customers called us on average of 8 times during the year. That's all I needed to show. Thank you. In 1995, our goal is to have impeccable phone service, which will mean taking care of the call the first time around, answering the questions efficiently and with courtesy. And in order to do that, we know we need to address 2 areas especially. One is staffing, and the other is reducing that phone volume so that customers don't need to call us as often, don't feel the need to call us as often, so that the customers who do absolutely need to talk to us can get through more easily. On the staffing issue, in the last 45 days, we've added 15 people to the customer service department. We're training them for twice as long as we've trained people in the past, and that means when they get on the phones, they're really ready to serve customers. In the past few months, the average time that it takes to process a customer call has gone from over 5 minutes to just over 3 minutes, and that's a function of training. We've also created a backup team, and that means that we have employees in other departments throughout the company who are ready at a moment's notice to come into customer service and take phone calls if there's a spike in calls until the volume is normalized. Then we're also making a number of changes to reduce the phone volume. And I've been in this job since October, and every day since I've been in this job, I've been monitoring phone calls, trying to find out why customers are calling us, what are all these phone calls about. And what I found is that for the 2 million phone calls, there's about 2 million different reasons why customers are calling us. So unfortunately, there's no quick fix that we can put into place. It's lots of little things. There are 1 or 2 what we consider to be major items that we can take care of. One of those major items is adding functions to the automated response unit so that instead of 110,000 customers being satisfied through the what we call the ARU, we can have many more customers taken care of, questions answered, services upgraded, services downgraded, just through a touch-tone phone, just as with banking and other service providers. Another thing that we're looking at, probably the single largest generator of phone calls is non-payment disconnects. And so we're looking at the way that we process disconnects for non-payment, trying to make that more efficient so that customers don't need to call us to get their service reinstated quite as often. We're also looking at automating our outage reporting. We're looking at processing our payments more quickly through a more effective system. As Wayne mentioned, we have the online bulletin board service with over 1,000 customers, and that's literally growing by hundreds daily. And customers contact us with questions, regular kinds of billing questions. They contact us with ideas. And we're responding to them on the bulletin board service within just a few hours normally. So it's become a great alternate method of contacting the office. We've also changed the wording on our billing statement to be more simple so customers don't need to call about bills. We're taping answers to frequently asked questions, and we'll show them those answers over cable channels so that people can get their questions answered by watching our service. And we're revamping the materials that customers get when they're installed so that they get some of their questions answered up front. So the list goes on. And basically, we're getting ideas from the people that talk on the phones, from our customers and from our customer service representatives every day. And if we can save 30 phone calls, those 30 phone calls will multiply, and instead of taking 2 million phone calls, Maybe we'll take fewer next year because customers don't need to call us and they're satisfied. But I do want to add that the 90-some-odd employees in the customer service department who are responsible for taking those calls are committed professionals who really take pride in the quality of service that they provide. And I can assure you that nobody wants excellent customer service at Sacramento Cable more than those customer service representatives do. I'm very proud of them, and I would love to invite all of you to come out and see our phone operation, and I think that you could see why I'm so proud. So be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have a couple.
Okay.
You said you doubled the training period. What does it now consist of? How many hours?
Well, it's about 5 weeks now.
Another question that just since I've been elected in a few months, people come into my business or my district offices and ask many of them the same question too. And I would say I've probably just since November had probably 100 inquiries as why is Bel Air no longer being a collection agency for the bills as PG&E, SMUD, and the city of Sacramento, and Bel Air is saying because Sacramento Cable is not being fair with us, is not doing this, and I'd like to get your side of the story as to why we cannot pay our cable bill at Bel Air anymore, as an example.
Well, we would love for you to be able to pay your cable bill at Bel Air, and we're working on expanding the number of payment stations. The service...
You were already there, is my point.
Pardon?
You were already at Bel Air for a long time.
They did not renew their agreement with us, and the reason, my understanding is that the reason is that the machine essentially that transmits the information was too slow for their standards, and they couldn't process customers through quickly enough. And the company that owns those machines has just been bought by another company, and they're guaranteeing us that they're going to have faster processing in the future. So I hope we'll be back in Bel Air or some similar convenient location all around the city. We're in 11 locations right now, and we're hoping to expand.
What was your maximum number of locations you're in since the last 4 or 5 years?
You know, I'm not sure, but I know that we had probably 6 or 7 more at one time.
That's all you've lost then?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other questions? I had just one or two, and maybe you mentioned these and I just missed them in your presentation, but can you tell us currently what your average time to pick up a call is and what your maximum time is?
Well, the time that we shoot for is 30 seconds to pick up a call.
That's your standard?
That's the standard.
Okay.
The maximum time really depends on if there's intense call volume for some reason. So if there is a spike, it can, be minutes as opposed to seconds.
As part of what you're doing and looking at how you can improve your phone response, you're tracking that, I gather?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the standard is to always be at 30 seconds.
I understand that, but I meant you're tracking your actual performance, and you're looking at your averages, your maximums, percentages at different levels. Can you share some of that? Do you happen to remember that offhand? For example, what your maximum time is? Are there some calls that end up going unanswered?
Well, or
that people hang up?
There are what's called abandoned calls, and that's somebody who decides that however long the wait may be, they don't want to wait, and so they hang up. Yes. Okay.
Somebody might hang up after one ring, obviously, and think, someone's knocking at the door, and so I'm going to hang up. And so obviously that's in a different category from someone who goes through 40 rings, if that ever happens, and I don't know that it does. Are you trying to track out at what, let's just say we could call the level where people abandon because they get tired of waiting?
Well, yes, we do track that because on days when we have a longer wait time because of the volume of calls, the abandonment rate generally goes up. So there's a correlation. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're asking?
Well, in part. I'm trying to get a feel for what percentage or what volume of calls end up in various categories. For example, what percentage end up going beyond your standard of 30 seconds for response? What percentage end up being abandoned what percentage are at various levels that we might consider the outer limits of where you pick up and people are still there. And I don't know how long that might be. Maybe some people wait for 10 minutes or whatever they choose to wait for. I was just trying to get some sense of what your pattern really looked like in terms of response time as compared to your standard.
Well, the pattern looks like at Mondays, for example, for some reason people think they may not be able to reach us on the weekends. So Mondays, the phone volume tends to be very high. The 30-second standard is hard to meet on Mondays. So Mondays it might be 60 seconds or 80 seconds. Wednesdays it might be 26 seconds. Sometimes the abandonment rate is a good thing. For example, if there's an outage, we'll put an upfront message on saying that if you live in zip code 95821, we're experiencing an outage, it will be repaired in the next 40 minutes. People hang up. That counts as an abandoned call, but really they're saying, okay, now I know what's going on. So.
Okay. Well, that gets at it. I guess if you chart these, I take it.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Assuming it's not proprietary, and if it is, let me know. Would you be willing to share what your tracking looks like for
sure,
a month?
We share a lot of this information with Rich. At least on a quarterly basis.
Mr. Chairman, the commission staff also samples the phones on a manual direct basis. We do that as workload allows within our own offices. In the last 2.5, 3 months, the phone response times have been very erratic. There have been ranges I would call up as high as maybe 16, 18 minutes and down as low as an immediate response. My recollection of the average of the last time we ran the summary, and that would be for November, it was about 1:04 minutes, I think, on average of probably 50 to 80 calls that we made over the preceding 4 weeks. Since then, it's come down. I comment that the interventions that Ruth was just described, I believe not any one will work to succeed and fix the problem, but in combination, I think there's some chance and excellent opportunities to bring the hold times down. This is the most frequent complaint that we get. And this is the first time, just in a positive, it's the first time in my 12 years that the company has taken a comprehensive look from the various aspects, how to respond to calls in a more efficient fashion, as well as how to reduce the number of calls coming in. I believe they need a little more time to settle things in. We do get, as part of our regulations, a quarterly report based on a 10-day sample. The company can pick at random the 10-day period, but we get a comprehensive report that describes for that period their response times. And my recollection for the one we got in December was 47 seconds on average for the number of calls per day, several tens of thousands of calls. I reported that to you in November that it was outside the standard, but the trend is going in the correct direction, which is what staff is looking at.
Do you report or do you receive more than averages? In other words, averages can be deceiving sometimes in terms of true performance.
Right. The regulations require an average reporting once a quarter, but the data that we collect from our direct calls, where we call maybe 3-5 times a day, 3 times a week at different times, is direct data that comes from me, from our staff. If I see a spike for more than 2 days, and Ruth knows this, Ruth gets a call or her voicemail gets a little message, what's going on and why? And we have this discussion back and forth. The time before last, there was a spike. Actually, Ruth called me to say that one cycle of bills went out with a billing error, with a mistake in the bill that triggered a whole bunch of calls. There's a reason those things happen. They staffed up the next day. The phones were back down at a normal range. But I do pretty much deal with averages, although I do know that Ruth and the management team have online, real-time stats.
I think it'd be educational, instructive to see the distribution as well as the averages.
You're asking a very insightful question. We're trying to measure every increment, how long does someone fatigue? Will they wait before they begin to fatigue? And what is the percentages? And we would love to share with you. We got a wealth of data. To the degree in specificity, we're still working our way and trying to figure out ways to massage it. But I'd love to share with you because it's fascinating, actually. And it's one of the first things that I jumped into when I got in here. and the sensitivity to scheduling, volume, information, billing, timing, it's all critical. It's critical to our ability to answer. And we're in a weird position because we want to contact and communicate with the consumer. That's the only time we have an opportunity to expose the benefits of our product and offer new services. But at the same time, we're trying to reduce the contact, the meaningless contact. And we're working in those areas, and we clearly have a lot of work to do. But the spiking that Richard spoke is specifically tied to poor staffing. Mm-hmm. We didn't staff correctly. Mm-hmm. And I'll take full responsibility for it. I was not sure what was going on. I don't believe, as any manager, why should I have to have 100 people to answer 5,000 calls a month? It doesn't make sense to me.
A day.
I'm sorry.
Please.
She whistles it with a mud.
To elaborate just briefly, sidebar, we have over 3 million potential opportunities to make a mistake a year. And if what we are hearing actually is a percentage, and it's still too high because we're looking for 0 defects, but that's a lot of contacts taking place. And our objective is to perpetuate the well-being of those contacts. We want them to be productive for everybody concerned. But your question is that's a wonderful question, because you have to break this problem, you solve this problem by breaking it down into its increments. And that's just exactly what Ruth, and I think we tried to share with Rich, that's what we're trying to accomplish. And she's correct. It's not one thing. The late fees, that's one issue. We can take care of that. Billing questions, the way the bill is arranged on the paper, there can be improvements there. Automation, the ability to communicate with the consumer about their bill on their TV screen. That's interactivity that's going to also make it easier, and less phone calls that are useless for the consumer and basically unproductive for the company. Mm-hmm. So I would, at the appropriate time, I'd love to share with you this data, because it's fascinating. And I think, as Rich, I must share, and I mean this with all sincerity, very bright. He comes in there and he sees things and he helps us. And Ruth will tell you, it was productive. And that's what this is about. I'll never make you as happy as you want to be without getting people involved and listening to what they have to say. And I think we are going to make some progress there, but we have a lot of work to do. 90% of it is staffing, getting the right number of people in the seats to answer the phone the minute it rings. That's the objective. And we're not there yet, but we think we know how to get closer to the destination.
Okay.
And also, we do have online real-time checking second to second. We have one position that's dedicated to staring at a monitor and seeing how many calls are waiting, what type of call is a sales call, a billing call, a repair call, who's on the phone, how long have they been on the phone, and that person is monitoring constantly, making sure we have enough people and that the calls are getting answered quickly enough. So that's, yes, we have those statistics on a second-to-second basis.
Mm-hmm. Even. Mm-hmm. Mr. Waters, you were asking about the service centers. One of the other issues was the minute we started changing out converters and customers started bringing back hardware, a lot of the retail outlets that were participating in the payment centers, it got distracted, and it made it complex for them. And so I don't want you to assume it was them, not us, but it's the complexity of bringing back payments and hardware, the value of that hardware and storing it. In some cases, they were frustrated customers too, which is a distraction to the normal traffic in the store.
As I said earlier, I know there's two sides to the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Has there been some thought as to going back to, especially with the 32-cent stamps now in place, just to put the bills there? I mean, that's 32 cents to a lot of these people.
Strictly customer service. It's foolish for us not to outreach and try to create scenarios where it's easier to do that, and we will do so. But a lot of the earlier problems, because we were at 33, we're down to less than 11, and they're flying out daily because they just don't want to get involved with it. We have to streamline it, make it easier, and make it also productive for them.
So it's not you haven't lost 6, as she said, but you've actually lost 22 then.
Well, it went to high water mark, I think, Kevin. We had
32 over back in the early...
One other clarification, because it's obvious to me that this phone waiting period is going to go on. I hear Roger saying rings, and I hear averages. Can you tell me When we speak of averages, is that when I call you, the number of times it rings until it's answered, or until I'm actually getting my business taken care of on the telephone with a representative?
From the third ring
Till when?
till you're talking to a live human being.
Okay.
Clock starts ticking.
Okay. So,
Mr. Waters.
in other words, the phone keeps ringing until I actually am ready to start conducting my business. There's no, as many of these places have, where they say, we're taking care of somebody else, we'll put you on hold. Does that occur after 3 or 4 rings or not?
That counts in the 30 seconds.
But it does happen, because I've never called out there, to be quite honest.
The regulatory standard adopted by the Commission's regulations is average hold time of 30 seconds, 90% of the time, with a busy signal rate not to exceed 3%. That's reported by an indicator reported by the company quarterly based on a 10-day sample, backed by another indicator by the calls that we make from the office. But it's 30 seconds, and that includes any ARU, the voicemail time. That is counted as well.
Okay.
The practical application in the office is that we deduct 10 seconds for the setup time of the phone transaction itself, and then we start the clock.
Yeah, just so I understand that, because it doesn't matter if I'm sitting there waiting for somebody to answer, in my opinion, or sitting on hold, it's still not getting my business taken care of.
It counts. It's from the time the call is initiated until the time you get a voice that can resolve your problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cox.
I've had occasion to call the cable company in the recent days, and frankly, my service was very satisfactory. I don't think this is a business.
You obviously didn't tell them who you were.
Had I told them, it might have been a great deal faster, sir, but I didn't want to use any influence that I might have had.
Or slower.
But this isn't a zero defect business. The County of Sacramento and the Board of Supervisors or the City Council or businesses don't have zero defects as it relates to answering that telephone. I think the most refreshing thing here is an attitude. There seems to me to be an attitude of cooperation between the staff and the cable company. Now, the proof of the pudding, of course, is, well, how long will the honeymoon last? I would hope that it continues. But it seems to me that this board ought to recognize that it isn't a zero defect. And while we have the right to have reasonable expectations and a standard of performance, in any business, when there are 400 or 500 or 600,000 subscribers, and I don't know what the number is. Mr. Cohen said he is a SMUD employee. Now, I can tell you that when an outage goes out, the people get on the telephone there and will hold for any number of minutes to find out what's going on. And when it literally rains, it pours. And so when there's a spike, I think we've got to have, we need to have some reasonableness about us in terms of how we administer this as a regulatory body, recognizing that there are probably 3 or 4 things that we own that causes us the greatest amount of consternation. Let me tell you what they are. When your automobile dies on you and you call AAA or the DMV or whomever you call, and it takes 2 hours to get there, by the time that they get there, you're fuming. But they tell you their response time is significantly faster. So when your automobile goes down, those of you that have a cellular telephone, when you get out of a zone that you can't call in, you go crazy, just waiting to be able to find a spot where you can pick up the telephone. And then when your cable goes out, I mean, it's the most frustrating thing. Everybody's outside putting up their antenna again. So there must be some reasonableness in terms of our expectation. Now, does that mean that we don't have a high standard and ask them to jump the hoops and continue to work in a manner of trying to be responsive? I think the important consideration is, in fact, it's an attitude that they generate. So,
other comments or questions?
We were just thinking of other much more frustrating things.
And there may very, those are the 3 things that come immediately to my mind. May very well be when your dog gets out, it doesn't come home when you call it. I don't know what that
I think the problem was Dave's car broke down his son. He was out of a cell phone zone, and he wanted to get home to watch something on cable.
Dave, Miss Collin and I were discussing about when the toilet line gets clogged.
may very well. Those are the things. I mean, but but it's like when you make that telephone call, and it seems like you're on there for 2 hours.
Try waiting for a placement sometime.
First meeting, I've lost control.
But we're going to move down to the hardware store down in the pocket area and demand 0 defects.
Thank you. Hopefully you'll be in a position to share the information sooner rather than later.
If you can get it on the agenda, it's great information, and I'd love to show you how we dissect these phone calls, where they're going, what they're about, and the increments of time.
We'll be interested in doing that, and maybe we'll have the time next month to do that.
Thank you.
Darby Patterson.
I was just coming down, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just say that I was not involved in the conversation with Mr. Yee and Ms. Collins.
And as
You just
Vice
wish he
Chair,
wasn't
you
sitting
shouldn't have
between us.
been. Darby, Happy New Year.
And the same to all of you. Happy, prosperous, successful for all of us. I also want to add that there are a lot of political animals around here. I am one of them. I am very pleased to say that yesterday we did continue the broadcast of the California channel on Channel 9. Now, what happened was that the guys disappeared, and they had caucuses, and they came back, and they adjourned. But my understanding is that we're going to carry the assembly until they finally make a decision. And this morning they ran off again, and they were caucusing. They came back about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's still a mystery to me what happened, but I think if anything's going on, we can all leave here and turn on Channel 9 and watch it. As well as the Governor's State of the State address, we will be preempting programming on Monday, and you'll be able to see that on Channel 9 as well. So we sure do try.
Well, as long as you started there, CalSpan or whatever it's called normally runs.
California channel?
Yeah, runs on same channel, sports channel, doesn't it? On 25?
Yes, it's shared space.
Okay. Well, our television, Miss Collins and mine, upstairs, and we
assume we have
appropriated.
basic.
Was blank on 25. It skipped 25.
It skips
as a matter
25.
Of fact. But and I don't know. My question really was, do you run
Program, probably. I think
a leader?
I think there's another question, Mr. Chairman, and that is.
Let me hold you off for just a second. I just want to know, did you run a leader on 25 saying you can switch to 9?
Yes, we do. We would run a crawl on Channel 25 directing you to go to Channel 9.
I think the real question, Mr. Chairman, is how many of you have televisions that you're getting service on? Ms. Collins has one, Mr. Dickinson has one.
Well, we have the
No,
same
they're
one.
in the conference rooms.
We have the same one.
There's a television in 2 different conference rooms upstairs.
Well, we're making every attempt to make it possible for us to watch government in action this week. I, of course, want to...
have a chicken in every pot, or a television in every pot. I'm not sure which it is. Okay, I'm sorry, Darby.
I wanted, of course, to take this opportunity to welcome the new members of the commission, Mr. Robbie Waters, who just sauntered off there, and
Too late to welcome.
I have had the opportunity to interview both of these gentlemen when I was a reporter, and certainly I remember Mr. Cohen was leading the charge against Centrage, and Mr. Waters is one of Sacramento's top cops. And of course, with Don Natoli, if anyone else tried to fill the shoes of his predecessor, I would be really worried. However, I have every confidence in the world that Don is absolutely going to keep up the tradition of really high integrity in District 5. And congratulations to all of you, and welcome to this commission. If there's anything we can do to help you learn our terminology, learn more about our business, visit us, get to know us, I'm absolutely happy to facilitate that. Said nice things about you, and there you were gone.
Sorry. First day, I goofed it up.
Not to repeat myself, I would like to show you a small video. It's about 5 minutes that we put together. That's sort of our year in review. So while we're doing that, I'm also going to pass out to our new members the book which we published, Sacramento Then and Now. It's really marvelous. It'll be fun for you to have around, great comparisons of the way things used to be and the way things are. And also our little dictionary of cable babble. We sometimes talk in acronyms, and we sometimes use abbreviations that I still have resisted knowing. This may help you out a little bit. So if you'll go ahead and roll that video, I'll pass these out. Thank you.
"1994 was a year of growth and change for Sacramento Cable. It was significant that, in a year when most cable companies in the nation simply maintained their subscriber base, Sacramento Cable achieved phenomenal growth, going from 213,000 customers at the start of the year to more than 225,000 by the beginning of 1995. At the same time, our directors and management implemented plans to get even bigger and better. Last year, we completed more than 200 miles of fiber optic upgrades, creating the initial fiber hub that will be the foundation for major construction throughout 1995. By this year's end, we will have laid more than 500 miles of fiber, created 255 fiber nodes throughout Sacramento County, and developed the capability to add 14 to 18 more channels. However, this fiber upgrade, which represents an investment of more than $30 million, will do more than bring additional viewing choices to our customers. It will improve the reliability of our service, the quality of our picture, and pave the way for exciting new services that, according to communications experts, will represent no less than a technological revolution. While focusing on these important business issues, we never lost sight of another top priority: people, both inside our company and within the community we serve. Along with increasing our emphasis on training and providing employees with opportunities for advancement, we kicked off a program to recognize outstanding members of our team with Employee of the Month awards and special events that help build pride, enthusiasm, and spirit within our family of more than 400. We also had fun. Halloween brought out the creativity of our employees as monsters, banditos, healers, and technicians, a little too wrapped up in their jobs, roamed our hallways. Many of our employees participated in community service projects as well. In 1994, Sacramento Cable was the major sponsor of the Old Sacramento Gospel Festival, the international stage at the State Fair, Sacramento Food Bank Services, the Urban League, and our major arts organizations, from theater and music to Chalk It Up, Sacramento. We also joined with C-SPAN to bring their high-tech school bus to the Capitol. High school students and their teachers were excited to board the bus and learn the importance of watching government in action, unedited, live, and sponsored by the nation's cable companies. Perhaps the most exciting event of our year was welcoming Wayne Vow to Sacramento Cable as our new general manager. From a banner signed by nearly every member of the company to cakes and balloons, employees gave Wayne an enthusiastic welcome over and over and over again before taking his official place as the person who will guide the company into the coming millennia. Since Wayne's arrival last spring, we've made many positive changes. Training has become vitally important. In 1995, we have budgeted nearly 3 times the amount spent in '94 on training programs throughout the company. We have designed incentive programs, formed employee advisory groups, and promoted numerous people from within the company. We also launched the Capital Channels, a one-of-a-kind cable service that will distinguish the city and its cable system. It was a model cooperative effort between business and government that demonstrated innovation and leadership. We closed out the challenging year with our second annual Christmas Caravan of Toys. After offering cable customers free installation in exchange for new toys, we loaded up our vans, all decked out for Santa and his elf, and headed to Oak Park, destination Sacramento Food Bank. Our employees carried thousands of toys into the warehouse. The party was planned for the coming Sunday, and toys were stacked in giant bins, everything from Power Rangers to Barbie dolls and huge cuddly beasts. However, Santa couldn't wait. He and his helper wandered inside and gave delighted children some precious moments on Santa's lap. They were shy. They were talkative. They came from many different lands, but they had one thing in common. They all believed. Santa passed treasured gifts into tiny hands and helped the kind folk at Sacramento Food Bank bring joy to local families experiencing hardships. We'll continue to contribute in all these ways while building a company that's a great source of pride for our entire community. We welcome 1995 with open arms and a positive outlook.
All right, Robert Mulligan. There you are. I know you. I saw you.
The other cable company. My name is Robert Mulligan. I'm the area manager for Cable America. I guess the new boy on the block. I'd like to give you an update, and there's some packages that are being passed around to you right now that include the handouts and the disclosure for our cable company. That's for the edification of the Cable Commission. If you wanted to review those now, we can go through them, but it's basically, it's got a map of the area that we've now built and what we have active and what we're about to turn on, and as well as our rate cards and some letters and some handouts that we give to our subscribership. Right now we have 10 miles of plant that we've completed building, and of that we have 8 miles active. As of January 1st, we have our first paying customers, approximately 186. And at this point, we're just going forward with our plans to expand our system in license area number 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Mulligan? Thank you very much. Thank you for the materials. We'll look forward to hearing from you in the future as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the commission on this item? If not, why don't we go to item number 4, Clerk will read.
Mr. Chair,
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Sacramento Cable Affirmative Action Audit, staff report.
Do you want to introduce this, Rich?
Yes, I would. Mr. Chairman, members, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ken Fleming, the City Affirmative Action Officer. And for a brief background, a year ago, November, upon receipt of affirmative action complaints, the Commission asked Mr. Fleming to conduct an audit of the Sacramento Cable Television Affirmative Action /EEO plan. In May, he reported to you his interim findings, and today he has his final report for you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good to
and
see you
happy
back.
New Year to the commissioners. It's a pleasure to be back. It's also been a pleasure working with staff as well as the staff of Sacramento Cable Television. This is our final report as it relates to the history that Mr. Espasto provided relative to our audit of Sacramento Cable Television. As you recall, in our initial audit, we made 8 significant findings where there were areas that we felt were not in compliance. After the initial finding, we had discussion with Sacramento Cable Television staff, and they provided us with additional data. As a result of that information provided, we were able to resolve 4 of the initial findings. The process that we utilized then to deal with the remaining findings was as follows. Finding 3, which basically dealt with the issue of job groupings appearing not to be appropriately classified, we took the steps to review classification information as it relates to job descriptions, and also reviewed that in relation to salary information for the positions that were in question. Our reviews revealed basically that in some cases titles that were utilized for positions within the affirmative action plan did not match with titles of job descriptions at the cable company. As a result of that finding, the commission, the cable company revised the title descriptions within the plan to reflect accurately their descriptions at work. In addition to that, our findings basically indicated that some of the positions did not necessarily reflect, in our opinion, the appropriate classification. If you will reference in your attachment 1, which is the FCC requirements or guidelines for classifying positions. Behind that attachment 1B is a position. You will note that, for instance, in attachment 1A, it defines a management position as a position that basically is covering the significant persons within the operation that set general broad policy. They have an overall responsibility for the execution of that policy, and generally exercise authority to hire and fire or direct departments or general operations. Attachment 1B is a position, marketing coordinator, which is classified as official and manager, but many of the requirements stated in the FCC guidelines are not really a role or responsibility of that position. Our findings basically result in a recommendation that we not take a piecemeal approach to dealing with this issue. It is basically recommended that instead Sacramento Cable Television, when they review future job classifications, undertake the position of, as opposed to simply surveying comparable employers, that they also compare the employer's salary comparison data and also job content and EEO classification for positions that might be comparable. And we're also suggesting that during the next plan update that this issue might be one that we would revisit. In response to findings 4, 5, and 6, Sacramento Cable Television submitted a modified availability computation analysis. And the revised analysis, it is our opinion, provides goals that in some cases are higher than the initial plan goals. And we feel that these goals that were recommended take in consideration the Commission's desire to limit our scope or aspect of availability to the greater Sacramento area. And they also give greater weight to the consideration of population. So it is our recommendation that the Commission accept the modified availability computations as the Sacramento Cable goal. You will note on, again in your attachments, attachment 2 is a comparison of that. The attachment basically indicates for each of the occupational classifications that are listed in the plan, their percent of utilization, which is the percent of employment for those particularly indicated groups. The first column, which is plan availability, is the initial or original goals that were set out in the plan. And the revised availability is the recommended or modified goal that they're suggesting. The third is basically the population standard in terms of our comparison when we looked at it versus that. Again, you will notice that the revised availability computations in most cases come somewhere in between the initial plan goals and the population recommendations. We think that this is an approach that would be appropriate in terms of setting goals. We are also recommending that the Commission accept the modified availability computations. And we're suggesting also that the information should be reviewed on an annual basis, and that in looking at that, the Commission can make decisions as to if there's a need for future modifications to ensure that those goals are meaningful, realistic, as well as being attainable. One of the other aspects of our review was that we undertook a survey. We were able to test a new system within the city, which was a voicemail forms process. And what we wanted to do was to basically survey the employees of Sacramento Cable to ascertain their understanding and knowledge of the company's affirmative action plan, their complaint procedures, as well as to solicit input as it relates to improving either of those particular items. We set up a 24-hour confidential voicemail form box where we were able to basically ask a variety of questions and then tabulate the information in terms of response from employees. We did not receive any response in terms of that, and that was after encouragement from STC management, as well as posting notices on bulletin boards soliciting the feedback from employees. It is our recommendation that, and I believe that the presentation that you just witnessed showed that some of these things are now being done. It is our recommendation that Sac Cable continue to provide training opportunities in the area of affirmative action, equal opportunity to staff and employees where appropriate, and also where appropriate where they have other training modules to incorporate a module dealing with affirmative action, equal opportunity issues. We're also recommending that they continue ongoing efforts to provide an opportunity for staff to have input and make suggestions as it relates to affirmative action policies. The final recommendation that we're making to the Commission is that they implement an annual report back from Sacramento Cable as it relates to their affirmative action status. And we're also recommending an annual review be performed of the affirmative action plan. That concludes my presentation. If you have questions, I'd be more than happy to respond.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work on this and excellent work. Ms. Collins.
Ken Miner, just to have some help with understanding the tables in the back.
Yes.
Okay, I think I understand the recommendations, but the tables I needed some help on.
Okay.
When, both with definition and with total numbers, because sometimes percentage doesn't really give you a feel for what numbers we're talking about.
Okay.
And for instance, I think I can fairly well envision officials and managers. What did you mean by professionals?
Professionals, again, if you would look at the attachment 1A, the standard that we use to define positions, and if you look on the far right-hand column of that first page, number 8, professional occupations. Professional occupations are generally those that require either college graduation or experience of a kind or amount that provides a comparable background. And positions that are comparable to professional positions are positions such as accountants, auditors, engineers, lawyers, people of that nature.
I didn't bring down that other backup. I've just
Pardon?
got the chart.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So you're talking about the small print one? The really small print one?
Lower right hand.
Oh, okay, great, professionals. Okay, because on some of these I see zero, and I see zero, or what looks like very low, and that was why I was trying to look.
Let me explain the chart and perhaps give a little more clarity to it. The first column across the top, which indicates percentage of underutilization, percentage of utilization,
right.
That basically reflects the percentage of persons within that particular category in the workforce at Sacramento Cable. Now,
that's what I thought.
That can be deceptive in the sense that, for instance, in the professional category, where there are areas there are 0% representation or utilization, it might be that that particular category has a very small number of individuals in it. It might be that there are only 2 or 3 people.
That was why I was saying that I'd love to have seen some of the numbers.
Right, the statistics will be skewed. That information is contained in the plan, and again, the process that you use in terms of determining if there's a significant underutilization is that you would look at the percentage of representation. Again, you only have the percentage there and not the numbers. Applying the rule of 1, being that if you look at that particular level of employment and you look at the availability, and if adding one person or taking one person would put it at parity, which would be reflective of the plan goal, then everything is considered acceptable. If, again, adding one person or subtracting one person would not bring it to within the level or percentage goal, then it's considered to be an underutilization. The chart basically only provides the level of utilization within that particular category, and then a comparison of the availability figures that were used. The first one being the initial one in the plan, the second being the recommended availability percentage that we use, and the third being if we were using the population percentage, what the goals would reflect.
Well, one of the things I would really appreciate would be numbers. There's just some things would puzzle me, and I'm wondering, because I'm also on the board of SETA, the Employment and Training Agency, and through that involvement, you come into a lot of programs where there are tremendous, for instance, opportunities for women in non-traditional jobs. And so I look here for operatives, and I look laborers, I look even under sales, which would seem automatic, you know. And you look at that in terms of if you take females, it's very interesting why numbers would be so low.
Okay.
And so I was just thinking maybe the cable company needs to be more hooked to some of the existing programs, and the minority numbers also, if they were hooked into some of the existing programs that are very active in the community. If there was the outreach, I think the numbers would change significantly. So if I just knew some total numbers, it would help too.
Right. Again, these charts that you're reviewing are basically just an extraction of the information from the plans, which actually contain numbers. As it relates to some of the outreach, I know in my dialogue with the staff there, they have indicated that some of the areas that they are now implementing as a result of the revisions that were made include outreach to community-based organizations. So I know now that some of those things are occurring. And in terms of the numbers, if it's your desire, we could provide as an informational item this information to you with that. It will be coming to you in terms of the annual report.
It would be better on the chart, though, I think.
Right. I would suggest that we could specify the particulars that you would like to see in a report from the commission, from the cable company, as it relates to what areas of operation. Generally, in such reports, you look at the employment activity for a particular period of time, the year, and that would include hiring, promotions, terminations, all of that type of information. And you look at it relative to numbers and percentage.
Right.
Okay, thank you. You do an excellent job, Ken.
Thank you.
Mr. Waters.
I would agree 100% with Isla on the fact that these charts are very hard to decipher. My mindset is, looking at the labor occupation on the last page, that, again, I don't know how large of a staff that the cable company has here in Sacramento, but it's just hard for me to comprehend the fact that they must have a goodly number of laborers, at least that's my mindset, and not one black employee. I just don't understand that.
Again, in some cases, there are situations like that.
From your knowledge, can you tell me, just to kind of clarify that, how many laborers were employed by Sacramento Cable?
How many laborers? Again, I think this was a category where the numbers are not as significant as some of the others.
But I'm saying, I have a
you want
problem.
to know the actual
Let's say the total number of employees Sacramento Cable that, for hypothetical reason, 100 of them are laborers.
Right.
And that's why I have a real hard time understanding this chart when it shows not one black employee in the labor category.
I'm sorry that information in terms of numbers was not on this. It was a part of our initial report, and the numbers and the information was there. What we were trying to do in terms of this chart was basically to show the difference in the level of information. What we can do in the future, though, are, again, as a report back, if it's your desire to indicate numerically how those percentages relate to the actual.
If there's only 3 laborers, it's not a big deal, but there's 300 laborers, it's a big deal.
I would suggest to you that when you see the percentages like that, it is a case where the number of persons within that particular category is not significant.
But I would think just the mere operation of Sacramento Cable, that a lot of laboring is done out there, repairing and digging trenches, et cetera, whatever they do.
Most of those positions are probably categorized in the operations or the operatives. Again, the way they're classified, you'll find, for instance, in the professional category, there are only 2 positions within the whole operation of Sacramento Cable that are classified as professional positions, and those are accountants, accountant 1 and accountant 2 or something like that. So there are only maybe 2 or 3 individuals within that particular category. The same thing probably as it relates to the laborers. I can again provide you that information. It's not a part of this submission, but we can provide
that's
that.
feasible.
Sure.
It seems to me, Ken, my recollection was the same, that in the earlier reports we looked at last year, there were those numbers in terms of absolute personnel.
In part, I'd asked Ken to summarize, and it was my direction to go with the percentages because we had the full report in April and spent about an hour on it. But seeing that you want the data,
what we
we'll
need to do is just go back and pull that out for the new members and share it with them so that they've got that. That's probably the first thing. Maybe it'll save you some work.
No problem. We can do that. In fact, for the new members, we can provide you with the information of the previous report as well as to update this to reflect numbers that will give you some.
I'd like, because I want to sit in this commission, I'd like to have that background knowledge also.
Sure.
Are there other questions?
No, Robbie, the reason I think it's important to include it on here is precisely what Ken alluded to. If I see percentages that say 0, but if I understand there's only 1 or 2 jobs, then I can understand why maybe it shows a 0. But if I think there's like 25 or 30 openings and it's still a 0, then I'm wondering what might be wrong with the outreach, and is there some way that we can connect better in the community so the outreach is better? So the absolute numbers as well as the percentage is really helpful.
See, the point I'm making is the mindset that at least I have, which I think many people, you wouldn't expect to see any laborers in a retail grocery store listed, okay, because they just don't utilize laborers. But to me, somebody that's out working, doing the type of work the cable company does on a daily basis, it seems to me laborers should, at least my mindset, be a large percentage or a...
Because you're thinking of the installers and the people who actually do the correction.
I'm not sure. I'm just thinking of the people that are doing the labor work.
Well, I think we can clarify that if we go back and resurrect.
Right. And I think the actual plan document would lead to the clarity there because it sets out the positions, the actual positions that are listed in a particular category. So that might be part of the information.
Mr. Chairman, it's staff's recommendation that you respectfully ask Sacramento Cable to review the final report from Mr. Fleming and comment back to you at next month's meeting. The overall perspective, we started this project very methodically November a year ago. And if we can put it in perspective, there was originally a AA/EEO plan that structurally did not meet requirements as well as reporting-wise in terms of the established goals. Sacramento Cable has come a very long way in revising their plan, working very closely with Ken. This is a much, much different document.
Right.
He's now made 2 final recommendations, one that we follow up with an annual report, and then a more practical one relative to how SAC Cable surveys other employers for job descriptions. I'd like to know if SAC Cable agrees with those and if they would be interested or would voluntarily agree to comply with them. And I would recommend that they have the opportunity to comment on the report and their recommendations next month.
Well, if the action you suggested here is to receive and file, if there's no objection, we'll do that and ask you as the executive director to invite Sacramento Cable to review and respond to the recommendations that have been made here in time for discussion next month. That's
Okay, and at that time, take further action on the recommendations by Mr. Fleming. Okay.
Again, in closing, I'd like to acknowledge two of the staff people from Sacramento Cable who were very helpful. All of the staff was very helpful, and again, the attitude as we want to make our product better. But I'd like to give special acknowledgement to Dave McVickers as well as Molly Conger for their assistance in our review.
Great. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's read item number 5.
We have general counsel appointment with a closed executive session on public employee appointment followed by an open session.
What I would suggest, because I do think this is a closed session item principally, is to hold that piece until we finish the 2 other items that are public session items, although we do have a couple people who'd like to address us on this item. So I would suggest we take those public comments now, defer the executive session to the close of the public portion of the meeting, if that's agreeable. And if there's not objection to that, Chris Carrier. Chris, are you there? You are. Chris, we're getting late in the afternoon, so we're going to utilize the clock here, and we'll give you 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
And we do have, I won't take it out of your time. We do have a copy of the letter that you have addressed to the commission.
Okay. First, I'd like to ask, does anybody else in the public wish to address the commission on this item?
There is one other person.
I'd like to have that person go first and then come back.
All right. Well, I'll give you that privilege. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Marie Jackson.
Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you very
New Year.
much. I will try and be very quick. For the new commissioners, about a year ago in the spring, there were problems with this group hiring an attorney. Now, I realize that we need one, and we got to have one. Fine. I have some suggestions that you should consider when you go to executive session of the qualities that I feel that you need. The person that you choose, we the taxpayers are going to foot the bill and pay for them. It should be someone that understands the history of this community, a firm that knows the fact that this commission in the past has been through legal stuff and problems, understands that. If necessary, can be the legal head alert to be sure that if Congress and the state changes the rules in this industry, that we know what it's going to mean for us who will end up paying for it if we do. That gives a willingness so the community has a way to continue cooperating, because we need to do that. And to build procedures for things like disputes. If there are problems, there should be binding arbitration, alternative dispute resolutions, first before you all go to court. Folks, when you go to court or you end up in court and this body loses, we the taxpayers end up footing the bill. This commission in the past has been through a lot of mistakes and problems. I don't have time to deal with it. Most of you who are new can probably look it up. If you can't, for some reason, hire an attorney today, and the new members want time to review, fine. Take 30 or 60 days if that's what it takes. But get closer on this issue as fast as possible. The legislative train through Newt Gingrich is moving fast, very quickly. The new laws are coming. This community is going to be in it. We're going to live with the effects. So before they pass whatever they're going to pass, let's make sure that the people of this region are prepared to deal with it and have our say before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Jackson? Okay. Chris, you want to come back?
Okay. I did send a letter to the commission concerning retention of Brent Blyer's law firm to have it continue as the commission's law firm. I'm strongly in favor of your retaining Mr. Blyer. He has generated a net revenue of approximately $2.5 million to the commission during his previous tenure. And that's basically what I want to say, that he's good for the commission, he's good for the Sacramento community. He is also one of the few people who has the knowledge to decipher certain extremely arcane FCC regulations. And back when we were setting benchmark rates as required by the FCC back in 1993, he discovered a little error of 1 cent per channel per month in Sacramento Cable's rate filing, which would have added up to $40 million over the life of the franchise. So in light of what he's brought into the commission and also what he's saved the ratepayers, he's definitely a person we want on our side.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Carey? Thank you. Okay. Why don't we move on then to item 6? Why don't you?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I have a time constraint. If it's possible, if we were going to go into closed session, I wasn't sure if this was something we were going to be voting on today, but if it is, I'd like to be able to do that now. And I have about 10 people waiting for me at a meeting that was scheduled long before I knew I'd be on the Cable Commission. I don't know what else is on, well, I do know what else is on the agenda, but I don't know how much time you have.
I think that these 2 items are fairly quick, Mr. Cohn, so if you can, if you want to make a phone call to...
I just did.
Okay. If you can hang in there a few minutes, I think that would be courteous to our public.
Relative to the staff comments, the staff report, I'll be as brief as possible. I don't know what might be next on the agenda, Mr. Cohn. I have 3 items for you on the staff status. First is just information item for you, a case called the Coleman v. Sac Cable case, or a class action suit, was recently settled, and every subscriber in the system was awarded a credit according to the court order. A copy of the disclosure agreed to in that settlement and sent to every subscriber is included in your packet if you didn't see it in your already home bills. But that is one class action suit that we were not involved in, other than recall that I was subpoenaed and some of you may or may not have been, but that is settled. Secondly, to Mr. Val's comments earlier and the nature of competition in the marketplace and the changes I believe we'll be seeing. First, I believe the next 18 months in telecommunications will see as much change as we've seen in the last 10 years. Yesterday's B reported a Court of Appeals decision allowing Pacific Bell into the cable television business in 4 areas in California. These court decisions have been replicated now, I believe, in 5 of the regional Bell areas. This one, the article reports that Pacific Bell will, within a year, be doing cable television services in San Diego, Orange, Los Angeles, and San Jose, portions thereof. Similarly, today's one of the trades reports a decision yesterday or Friday by the Public Utilities Commission of California to expedite their rules allowing the cable television industry into the telephony business. The issues here are, as Wayne talked about, sizable from the perspective of revenues per subscriber. Where we fit, how regulatory bodies nationwide fit in, is really too early to tell. It's going to depend very much on the legislation we expect to see in Congress. Last April, I recommended to you a set of legislative policies based in part on the League of Cities telecommunications policy. I believe those are still adequate and appropriate, and staff will continue to act under those policies. I will keep you informed. It's my expectation that we will see a federal telecommunications reform bill late January or early February. It may be necessary or requested that one or more of you participate legislatively in Washington. I'll have budget numbers, et cetera, for you should that become necessary. Staff continues to work with the League of Cities on the prospects of that. The key issues in my mind, going back to our policies, are that local government fight to protect or to stop the preemption of federal authority over local government rights of way. I believe that's the key issue. As we look at leveling the playing field and many comers coming into the telecommunications marketplace, the concerns are, as we saw in S 1822 last year, that local government would be preempted when it came time to dig up the streets. I drew the parallel to the issue of cellular phone towers being installed under the auspices of the PUC and what the Board of Supervisors went through a couple of years ago in bringing local planning, local permit process into that. I think that's the foremost issue. The next one I'd like to comment on, if there's no questions on legislation, and I'm trying to be brief, is in early December, the FCC released a new set of regulations called the Going Forward Rules. I've attached a summary of them for you to read, but they are going to trigger some changes that you will be seeing, I believe, from Sacramento Cable very soon. Wayne indicated that he'd be briefing staff next week or the week after on some changes. These, as everything has happened with consumers, or to consumers, will likely be complicated again. Briefly, what the rules provide for are creation of new product tiers. That is the ability of the cable company to set up a new tier with new products and or to replicate products on existing tiers. Those new product tiers, in most part, will be unregulated, but they will have interesting dynamics to them as to how they're structured, and it's getting to the congressional policy of giving consumers more choice. The interesting aspect of these new going forward rules, and I see it as a swing from last year's regulations, which were very clearly pro-consumer with the reductions ordered in cable rates, to now we're seeing the FCC's swinging back, and in my opinion, the going forward rules tend to now favor the industry. If Sacramento Cable or another cable operator chooses to add channels, they can pass through programming costs. They can add on approximately 20 cents per channel for the cost of adding the channels. We will see some changes in rates as a result of the going forward rules. I expect to be able to give you a more detailed briefing after the filing, after Sac Cable's notice to us of what changes they intend on making. In addition, there are going to be rate adjustments to the existing structure. The Cable Act provided for, and the FCC regulations provide for, quarterly pass-throughs of programming increases in costs. The Cable Act provides for CPI adjustments on a quarterly basis retroactively. In addition, the FCC recently approved a pass-through of approximately 3 to 4 cents per subscriber. It's $370 per thousand, and it could be allocated on the basic service tier at 3 cents for so many months and 4 cents for so many months. I believe Sac Cable will be passing that through as well. So in the next month, we will be seeing from Sac Cable, and we'll be seeing nationwide, new channels being added because there is a financial incentive to do so, and there is also a desire on the part of consumers to see new programming. We're also going to be seeing rate adjustments. At this time, I can't tell you what the magnitudes are, but they are. It will require staff to become much more familiar with the going forward rules as they've been described.
So the going forward rules are adopted. These are not proposed.
Portions of the rules are open for comment through January 13th.
There are some comments that we would make consistent with prior policies, aren't there?
Not consistent with prior policies, but I believe there are some comments that we could be making relative to the overall effect on consumers. As you recall, this commission commented quite favorably into the FCC's rulemaking process on equipment compatibility. If you'd like, I'd be happy to draft comments for you based on staff's analysis of these rules.
I mean, I think we would do well to comment on these rules because they're going to be significant in their effect.
Comment that I believe that staff could prepare comments on these rules without having to go to outside consultants like we did on the engineering.
If there's no objection to that, I would suggest that we do that and submit those.
I'll submit a draft to you.
Okay. And we can circulate the draft before it goes out in case there are any objections to the substance of them, can't we? I mean, it's quick, but we can do that, I believe, can't we?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions?
Mr. Robert Waters asked the question about what authority this commission has over the direct dishes, and I didn't hear a specific response.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Yee raised that issue. If you want to address that.
Under local ordinance authority, there is no authority for any operator not utilizing the right-of-way. The jurisdiction of this commission triggers by digging up the street and placing physical equipment in the easement or right-of-way. Several months ago, based on a law that went into effect in September, the Commission directed that we go back to the respective jurisdictions, the county and cities, and delegate to this Commission a very small portion of state law having to do with customer service standards. That is, it's a government code section, and the basic customer service standards that apply under state law to the cable companies also applies to all multi-channel video providers. Therefore, the Commission's consumer assistance function, we have 4 basic functions that we issue franchises, we administer franchises, we assist consumers, and we fund the PEG access. Those are our 4 basic functions. The consumer function applies to all multi-channel video providers. So under the authority, we would process complaints from consumers on the satellite dishes. We'd process complaints for someone who is subscribing to a home satellite service, and we've had 1 or 2 of those this year. I have notified the direct broadcast satellite entities of this law, and they are aware also on the statewide level. And we've also notified every home satellite big dish operator that we're aware of in the jurisdiction that we are here to assist consumers in that regard. That is the extent of our authority over the other competitors at this time.
One of those big dishes that you have in your backyard that picks up 20 satellites, we have jurisdiction over those in terms of service complaints?
Yes, on a very narrow area. That is.
And what extent do we have in terms of pricing? What extent do we have in terms of quality of service? We literally have none. The answer is right. We have none, and we have no source of revenue.
That's incorrect. The state law provides that we could charge back on a per complaint basis, on an actual cost basis, to a home satellite operator for processing their complaint.
Let me just see if I understand. So I've got this big dish in my backyard, and I'm not happy with the service, so I call the Cable Commission, and we process a complaint and then file the. Then you come back to me and say, because I have handled your complaint, I'm going to charge you for that?
We have the authority for that, yes, sir.
I understand.
To charge not to charge the consumer, the home satellite system.
To charge the satellite service provider, not the consumer.
The home satellite dish, I'm talking about one of the big ones.
They're referred to as buds, big ugly dishes.
Okay. The guy I bought mine from has gone out of business. Don't have one, but I hypothetically. Who now is responsible?
Under the laws, I understand it, the responsible party is for the service you are providing. So if you're paying a monthly fee to a satellite service, paying $33 a month to get a package of services, it is that entity that we have a relationship with. If your bill is unclear, if you've made a payment and it hasn't been posted, if they've raised rates without giving you a 30-day notice. And that's pretty much the extent of the authority that we have.
We have any punitive measures with respect to them?
Yeah, there is a schedule of penalties in that government code section. I believe it's a maximum of $200 per infraction.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? You know, just your this last set of comments takes me back to legislation. We obviously had a very active year last year that culminated in no action.
That's correct.
But those issues are clearly coming up again. In fact, I heard Senator Dole in an interview yesterday raise the fact of telecommunications legislation as being high on the Senate's agenda, even though it wasn't apparently part of the House Republicans' agenda that's gotten so much attention. So clearly this is going to be an issue again. And equally as clearly last year, as you alluded to, local governments were not taken very seriously,
That's
to
correct.
say the least, in the process of consideration. I wonder if we ought not to just send a quick note off to our California senators and local congressional delegation saying something to the effect of there was legislation last year, as you know, which didn't pass. It's coming back. There are concerns that we have consistent with our adopted policy that as that legislation affects local government, look for more to come.
With your direction, I'd be happy to draft that for you.
If there's no objection to that, because we adopted policies on this last year. So
I think the biggest fear that you would have as public entities is the total disruption to your street and highway system. And that would just be totally disrupting to have people not have to go through local government in order to tear up and utilize the right-of-ways that exist, and no ability to really monitor that, regulate that, would just be chaotic in terms of getting to home to business and everything else.
I think this is
we had enough battles just with having some regulation in terms of dealing with complaints about how the streets were handled without looking at a system where there'd be nothing.
This is an issue that we really need to get our oar in the water early this year. I think it passed the House last year, 395 to 5 or something.
That's correct. Very, very
close. I don't think they're thinking.
400 to 5, something like that. Any other comments? If not, why don't we go to the last item, which is an opportunity for the public to address items not on the agenda. And Ms. Jackson, you had indicated this item. Do you have anything else you want to add? Okay.
Yeah, go. First of all, I'm pleased that you're all starting these meetings on time. And
don't worry, it's an aberration.
And welcome to the new people who are sitting on this commission. Gentlemen, you have inherited one hell of a beast. So I hope you're prepared. As one person is a taxpayer for paying for this entity, I think 1995 is an important year. On November 8th, people spoke, and a lot of us said, government, as usual, it's not going to get it. I hope, with my heart, that you people take your responsibility seriously, legislate and debate and fight. That's fine. Please don't make it too personal. Please remember the people out here, us, are footing the tab, no matter what you decide to do, and bring us in. There's an access community here, there are providers here, there are taxpayers and users of this technology. It's here, it ain't going, we're going to have it. Let's find a solution for this county to make it work. There's 1 million of us living here plus, and we're growing fast. So bring us in. Reach out to us. A lot of us are willing to be here if you let us. I promise I'll do my best and let you know. And final PS, when you get to their budget, give them a fax machine so we, the public, can talk to them, and the business folks too, so we don't have to always spend 32 cents writing letters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Rich,
okay,
you don't
there's
have
a good, solid suggestion.
You better more publicly publish your
That's
fax
right. All right. Why don't we we'll recess into executive session at this point.
This is a red hot issue. Business person will always be on the wrong side.
Why don't you join?